You're out of the family business. You've always been a burden. Stop embarrassing us. Those were my father's exact words. In front of our board. In front of my siblings. In front of the entire staff I trained from the ground up. My name is Vanessa. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been exiled by your own blood while the world watched, like your existence was a stain they were desperate to scrub away? It was a Friday morning. Quarterly strategy meeting. The conference room smelled like stale coffee and betrayal. I just presented a new marketing blueprint. Something bold, data-backed, worth millions in growth. My brother called it too ambitious. My sister fake smiled. Then Dad stood up, hands shaking, and detonated my career. You're a burden. You're out. Effective immediately. Then he added, you've always made things harder. No discussion. No vote. Just exile. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply looked at them, every face that had once claimed to be family, and said, understood. Then I stood up, gathered my notes, and walked out barefoot dignity in 6-inch heels. They expected silence. They expected shame. But what they didn't expect was what came next. Because while they laughed in that glass tower, they forgot who designed the foundation. They forgot who created the customer systems, who handled the legal filings, who held the passwords, the partnerships, the trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't scream. It slips quietly into the night and takes everything with it. 48 hours later, they had 56 missed calls on their phones. Not from me. From vendors. From investors. From regulators. And that was just the beginning. Because when you burn the only bridge that ever kept you afloat, you'd better learn how to swim. And my family? They never learned. They thought I walked away empty-handed. They had no idea I took the floor beneath them. By Sunday night, the silence turned to panic. Emails bouncing back. Partnership contracts suddenly flagged. Distribution pipeline stalled. Because here's the thing. While they flaunted titles and played family politics, I built the operations. I was the system. Every client relationship? Mine. Every licensing renewal? Managed by me. Every automation script, vendor list, supply chain node, all routed through the back-end portal I created 6 years ago. And when they booted me out, they never considered the legal clause in our articles of incorporation that any structural changes required all original founders' signatures, including mine. Oops. The business they humiliated me in was now considered legally compromised. I didn't need to sabotage anything. All I had to do was log out. My brother called first. Blocked. Then my sister. Vanessa, come on. Let's be adults about this. Adults? Adults don't humiliate their own in a room full of strangers. Adults don't erase your decade of sacrifice and call it business. I said nothing, but my silence echoed. That Monday morning, I met with the CFO quietly. Yes, the one they had fired 2 years ago after accusing her of being too loyal to Vanessa. She smiled when she saw me. I've been waiting for this day, she said, and handed me a folder. It contained everything. The passive shares they forgot I owned. The secondary holding company I'd set up under my middle name that still held 27% of the parent assets. And the royalty structure they signed 5 years ago without reading. The one that meant, if I walked, they owed me a cut of every transaction. Even now, especially now, I didn't need revenge. I had structure. And structure doesn't beg for respect. It demands it through silence, through paper, through balance sheets. By Tuesday morning, my dad called. No yelling this time. Just a shaky voice and a question. What exactly did you do? I didn't answer. Because I didn't do anything. They did. When they decided I was disposable. When they mistook quiet for weak. And loyalty for leverage. They thought cutting me out was an ending. But they forgot one thing. I built the door. And I was the only one holding the key. Tuesday night, the headlines started rolling in. Not front-page news yet, but whispers in the business columns on finance blogs, industry Slack threads. Family-owned empire faces legal hurdles after sudden executive ouster. Operational freeze reported amid internal shakeup at Lennox Group. The irony? I was the internal shakeup, and all I had done was step away. My sister texted me a single line. "Please talk to Dad. He's not sleeping." I left her on read. Because for 16 years, I didn't sleep. Not when they called me at 2 a.m. to fix what they broke. Not when I stayed up perfecting proposals they pitched as their own. Not when I signed contracts under pressure just to keep the family name clean. They had no idea how much of the business ran on my back. But now, they were feeling the weight of their own arrogance. By Wednesday morning, their merchant processor froze transactions. Because someone flagged their compliance docs for review. All legal. All fair. They called an emergency board meeting. Except, the board couldn't convene.
Why?
Because legally, the board still required my signature to authorize quorum. That little clause buried in the bylaws?
Yeah.
I wrote that. They never noticed. They thought they could erase me. They forgot I designed the ink. That afternoon, I sat at a cafe downtown, 2 blocks from the office tower I used to call home. I sipped a matcha and watched from across the street as the suits poured out in panic, phones pressed to ears, chaos blooming in every window. One of the interns spotted me. She walked over. "Vanessa? You okay?" I smiled gently. "I'm free." She hesitated, then asked, "Are you ever coming back?" And for the first time in years, I answered with no doubt in my voice.
No.
Because I didn't lose anything. I left it behind. They didn't fire me from the family business. They freed me from the cage they built and called it loyalty. And what they didn't know, I'd already begun laying the foundation for something of my own. No board. No hand-me-down legacy. No thrones built on guilt. Just mine. And it was almost ready to rise. Thursday morning, my father showed up at my apartment. Uninvited. Unannounced. But not unexpected. I watched from the window as he stood on the sidewalk, coat wrinkled, eyes darting nervously like he hadn't stood alone in years. This was the man who once told a Fortune 500 CEO to get in line. Now, he couldn't even ring a doorbell with confidence. I didn't let him in. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me like I'd done that day in the boardroom. He didn't speak at first. Just stared at me like he was trying to locate the daughter he used to control. "I made a mistake," he finally said. I tilted my head. Which part? Calling me a burden, or doing it in front of 30 people? He flinched. "Good." I was angry. "You were pushing too hard. I thought you were trying to take control." "I was trying to take control," I said. "Because someone had to." He looked away. "What do you want, Dad?" He swallowed hard. "We need you back. The investors are restless. Our distributors are threatening to pull. And," he hesitated, "your siblings are in over their heads." I folded my arms. And he straightened like he still had authority. Like a man who forgot the crown had already fallen. "We can bring you back in. Make things right. Give you a title. Senior VP. I laughed. Right in his face. "Dad, I built the engine. I don't need a title to prove it. And I don't want back in." "But this is your legacy."
No.
"This is your legacy. The one that used me like duct tape for a leaking empire." His face collapsed. Like he finally saw the wreckage he'd made of me. But it was too late. Because I had already rebuilt. "You can have your legacy, Dad," I said quietly. "But you'll have to run it without me." Then I walked away. And for the first time in his life, he didn't call me back. Because even he could feel it. That door wasn't just closed. It had been welded shut. And I was no longer on the other side. By Friday, word had spread far beyond our circle.
Colleagues.
Clients. Competitors. Everyone in our industry now knew. Vanessa Lennox was no longer part of Lennox Group. And Lennox Group was unraveling. Their empire was built on my invisible labor. Now that I was gone, the invisible had become essential. Vendor delays turned into contract breaches. One of our biggest international clients, the Tokyo firm I'd personally secured, pulled out entirely. I didn't call them. I didn't have to. They emailed me directly. "We trusted you. The rest of them never responded after the deal closed. Please let us know where you're going next. That last sentence said everything. Because while they were worried about fixing the house they set on fire, I was already laying bricks on new land. By then, I had partners, investors, my own legal team,
And a name.
Vale and North. My own venture, lean, elegant, and deliberately mine. I didn't just start a new business. I started clean. No nepotism. No inherited rot. No family ties wrapped in guilt. Just me and a hand-picked team that believed in building something better. Meanwhile, my father's calls grew more desperate. One voicemail. We can renegotiate the terms. Another. I'll name you co-CEO. Then finally, please, this can't end like this. But it had already ended. The moment he decided public humiliation was more important than private accountability. The moment they all looked away while I was pushed off the ladder I built.
And now?
The foundation they stood on was cracking. Not because I broke it, but because I stopped holding it up. That Friday night, I sat in a quiet corner of a rooftop bar, watching the skyline. Laptop open. Final logo design uploaded. Vale and North, built to rise. I took a breath, then clicked publish. My company was live. My story, no longer theirs to rewrite. I didn't need revenge. I had evolution. And evolution doesn't knock. It opens its own door. And builds a house you can never be locked out of again. Saturday morning, I woke up to chaos. Not mine. Theirs. My inbox was flooded. Investors from the old firm demanding answers. Legal teams CCing me on panic-fueled threads. Even former staff reaching out, asking if they could come with me. And in the middle of it all, an email from our biggest stateside supplier. Subject: termination of Lennox Group contract. We're moving forward with Vale and North. I didn't poach. I didn't beg. I simply built something worthy, and people moved toward it. Meanwhile, the house I left behind was caving in. My sister texted, "You're destroying us." I stared at the message, then whispered the truth aloud. "No, you destroyed yourselves. I just stopped pretending you hadn't. Because I wasn't doing this to them. I was doing this for me. For the nights I ate in my office while they dined on my wins. For the birthdays I missed to clean up their financial messes. For the years I stood at the edge of the spotlight, holding the ladder while they climbed. Now, that ladder was mine. And I was done holding it up for people who only ever looked down. That afternoon, I signed my first major partnership under Vale and North. A clean six-figure deal. All mine. No split. No dad hovering with edits. No brother's fake smile. No family brand to protect.
Just me.
Just earned. I didn't celebrate with champagne. I ordered Thai takeout with the one friend who never doubted me. And I told her, "You know what feels better than revenge?" She grinned. "What?" "Replacing everything they thought you'd beg to keep. Because while they were busy spinning damage control in boardrooms, I was rebuilding my name in silence. And for the first time in years, the silence wasn't painful. It was powerful. A kind of peace you only earn when you stop asking to be included and start carving out space where you never need permission to exist." Sunday evening, my father sent a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A printed letter, on Lennox Group stationery, no less. Like formality could undo what arrogance had broken. It was 5 paragraphs of stiff regret, hidden behind legal language and empty phrases. "We acknowledge your contributions. We regret the tone of the previous exchange. We would like to find a mutually beneficial resolution." There it was, mutually beneficial. The same phrase he'd used when cutting me out, as if betrayal were a business strategy. I folded the letter once, then dropped it in the trash. Because by now I understood something they never did. Apologies made under pressure aren't apologies. They're negotiations. And I wasn't interested in negotiating my worth anymore. That night, I got a text from Aunt Evelyn, the only one in the family who ever looked me in the eye and said, "You deserve more than they give you." Her message said, "I saw the news. I'm proud of you. They needed you more than they ever admitted." And for the first time in years, I let myself cry. Not because I was sad. Because someone finally said it out loud.
They needed me.
And they used me. And when I asked to be seen, they handed me silence and called it tradition.
But now?
I wasn't their daughter with a clipboard. I wasn't the shadow behind their throne. I was the woman who walked away from the fire and built a lighthouse. Vale and North was thriving. I had 5 new hires, an assistant I actually trusted, and my own office with windows that stretched over the city I used to walk through feeling small. Now, they called me ma'am. They asked me for terms. Because nothing shifts the ground like reclaiming your voice. And when I sat down that night, looking out at the skyline they thought I could never touch alone, I smiled. Because I didn't burn the bridge. I owned the land beneath it. Monday morning, exactly 10 days after I was publicly exiled from my family's company, I got the final call. Not from my father. Not from my sister. Not even from legal. It was from our grandmother's attorney. He was firm, polite, and very direct. Miss Lennox, per the late Mrs. Lennox's will, I wanted to inform you that the private family trust has shifted control to you, effective immediately. I froze. What? She believed you were the only one with the strength and vision to preserve the legacy. She left a letter. I'll send it today. That afternoon, I held my grandmother's handwritten words in shaking hands. I saw what they did. Every year, every meeting, every cut they made into you, and called it family. You never needed their permission, Vanessa. Only your own. I don't remember crying. I remember breathing. Like it was the first full breath I'd taken in years. They thought they'd throw me out. But they were never the gatekeepers. They were just the noise. I was the one holding the ground. 2 days later, headlines followed. Lennox heiress launches rival firm, gains control of private trust. Family feud sparks new era. Vale and North declared a market disruptor. I didn't respond to press requests. Didn't post a single quote. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Because the boardroom they kicked me out of now watched my growth from behind glass. Because the father who said I was a burden now held meetings in silence, hoping no one asked about me. And because the company they thought couldn't function without me,
They were right.
it couldn't.
And it didn't.
And it won't again. Not without the woman who built it blindfolded and barefoot, who kept the walls up while they painted their names across them. I never shouted. I never threatened. I simply walked away. And everything they thought they controlled followed me. That's not revenge. That's truth finding its voice. And when it speaks, it doesn't ask for justice. It becomes it.